To you from Mission Control Houston, and welcome to our live coverage of the release of Orbital ATK's Cygnus cargo craft from the International Space Station. You're getting a look now in the International Space Station Flight Control room. The Orbit 1 team sitting on console right now, monitoring the systems and walking the crew through the upcoming release of this unmanned cargo craft. Meanwhile, on board the station, NASA astronauts Scott Kelly and Tim Kopra sit at the robotic controls, getting ready to release the unmanned vehicle, which has been packed with trash and other disposable items. That release scheduled to come up in just under 25 minutes from now. The release window for this vehicle opening up at 6:25 a.m. Central Time and continuing until 6:58, so they'll have plenty of time to send Cygnus on its way. The vehicle was unberthed from its home where it had been attached for the last 72 days earlier this morning. That unberthing coming at 4:40 in the morning Central Time, and it was then maneuvered to its release point where it now sits by ground controllers. With it at the release point, the astronauts on board now going through their checklists, making sure the arm is ready before they eventually detach Cygnus. Again, that's that window opening at 6:25 a.m. Central Time, so coming up a little more than 20 minutes from now. This was Orbital ATK's fourth resupply mission to the International Space Station and the first flight of the upgraded Cygnus vehicle with upgraded solar arrays and an increased cargo carrying capacity. This vehicle actually delivered a little over 7,700 pounds of supplies, scientific experiments, and various other equipment items to the crew of the International Space Station, supporting dozens of science experiments across both expeditions 45 and 46. Experiments in biology, biotechnology, physical science, and earth sciences. A lot of research not only continuing to prepare us for additional flights through deep space, but also research impacting life down here on Earth. As mentioned, Cygnus has been packed with trash and other disposable items. Right now, a little over 1.5 tons on board, and all of those items will burn up along with the vehicle when it makes its deorbit coming up on Saturday. The vehicle, once it's free, going to be controlled by orbital mission controllers out at Mission Control Dulles, who are standing by and observing all the operations, working with the team here in Mission Control Houston, getting a quick look at them out at Dulles, Virginia. They'll be, again, monitoring the vehicle, controlling it following that release, which is going to come in just about 22 minutes from now. And then Cygnus will fire its engines, begin departing from the International Space Station, setting it up for an eventual destructive deorbit coming up on Saturday. That deorbit will be done in two separate stages. The first time it'll burn its engines for that deorbit burn, it'll be about 244 miles in front of the station and about 6.2 miles below it. And then when that final deorbit burn begins after it completes 3 more orbits of the Earth, at that point Cygnus will be 1,264 miles in front of the station and about 6.8 miles below it, so well away from the station when it does that destructive re-entry over the Earth, expected to burn up somewhere over the Pacific Ocean. And this a live view from one of the external cameras. You could see the sun just beginning to peek over the Earth's horizon, with a sunrise coming very soon for the crew on board the International Space Station. The next day cycle is scheduled to begin in about 3 minutes. And again, that release window for the crew will open up at 6:25 a.m. time. That's the expected release time of Cygnus, but that window stays open until about 6:58 a.m. Central, so they'll have plenty of time to send Cygnus on its way. So we do have a view now of the actual unberthing of the vehicle, which again took place at 4:40 a.m. Central Time. This is sped up about 8 times. Otherwise, we'd be sitting here for a little while, as it is a fairly slow operation to get the vehicle clear of its berthing port. But there you can see Orbital ATK's Cygnus craft, dubbed the SS Deke Slayton II, with the large new solar arrays that were one of the features of the newly upgraded Cygnus for the commercial resupply company. This operation was controlled by robotics controllers here on the ground, as they detached Cygnus from its berthing port on the Earth-facing side of the Unity module, also known as Node 1, and slowly backed it away as the station continued to orbit over the Earth. This was done in a very deliberate, very deliberate manner in order to move Cygnus away and then orient it in its release attitude where it now sits. But this done again, that unberthing coming at 4:40 a.m. Central Time, being maneuvered over the last hour and a half or so into its release attitude, getting to the release point just a little before 6 a.m. this morning, and then now we sit. So again, that release window opening up in just under 20 minutes from now. Orbital ATK Cygnus packed with a little over 1.5 tons of trash and other cargo for disposal along with the vehicle. And that'll bring an end to a very successful 72-day mission, the 4th resupply mission for Orbital ATK. Scott Kelly and Tim Coper are continuing to work through their procedures inside of the station's cupola. This is actually a live view at their robotics workstation. This is what the crew sees as they work through. We'll be sending commands through the workstation to the robotic arm once the time for release comes, and then Cygnus will be on its way. And the sun now rising on the station and Cygnus. They're actually in the second orbit of Earth. Right now, daily orbit number 2 for the crew on board. So the flight director leading the team this morning, Judd Freeling, just polling the teams quickly, confirming that the International Space Station is go for release, giving a heads up to the Cygnus flight control team out at Mission Control in Dulles, Virginia. So with the station go, all of the steps in place.
Per step 1.5 and 1.320. The release window opens at 12:25 and closes at 12:58.
Okay, sounds good. We're just reviewing the procedure, and so we're currently in step 3, just reviewing what we're going to do, and we'll get back to you.
Copy.
NASA astronaut Serena Anand giving the call up to Kelly and Copra, letting them know the station go for release. Again, that release window opening at 6:25 a.m. Central Time. So that'll be the release command to be sent and Cygnus to be sent away from the station. And again, the vehicle delivered a little over 7,700 pounds of supplies to the station. That was the largest payload weight for a commercial resupply mission to the International Space Station so far, and delivered science payloads supporting dozens of different experiments across both expeditions 45 and 46. Among the things on board were a new life sciences facility helping to support studies on cell cultures, bacteria, and other microorganisms. Delivered a new micro-satellite deployer, allowing a new class of satellites to be deployed from the International Space Station, and the first microsatellite that was ultimately deployed from it, which was a joint project between two Texas schools, the University of Texas at Austin and Texas A&M. Along with that, some experiments studying the behavior of gases and liquids, and also a new burning and suppression of solids experiment, which has been running over the last several weeks, that studying various flame retardant and flame resistant textiles, how they burn in space, potentially influencing the materials that get used on future space missions, also influencing textile manufacturing down here on the ground. And aside from scientific experiments, Cygnus also, of course, delivering a lot of food, other perishables and supplies for the crew on board the International Space Station, also delivering a new safer device, that the Simplified Aid for EVA Rescue, the emergency jetpack, if you will, that the astronauts wear during spacewalks in the event that they were to become untethered. It could reorient them and get them back to the station structure. Cygnus also delivering two high-pressure tanks known as NORS tanks, nitrogen and oxygen tanks with super pressurized liquid oxygen and liquid nitrogen that were then plugged into the station's air supply network just to recharge it. So the robust vehicle delivering a lot of cargo, a lot of experiments, a lot of hardware for the crews on board the International Space Station. Now at the end of its mission, however. It spent 72 days attached. It launched back on December 6th, 2015, arriving just 3 days later, where it was captured by the robotic arm to which it's now attached, and was berthed to the Earth-facing side of the Unity module on the U.S. segment of the International Space Station. It was detached from Unity again earlier this morning at 4:40 a.m. Central Time, has been maneuvered to its release point by ground controllers, and now we're going to continue to stand by until 6:25 a.m. Central, where the release point will be, or the release window will be open, and Scott Kelly and Tim Coper at the robotics controls will have the go to release Cygnus.
I'll copy Houston on space to ground 2.
Scott, we copy. Sorry for the delay. We've still got a little bit of reconfig to do, so we'll give you a definitive go in just a little while.
Okay, so we'll stop at step 2, Cygnus release.
Concur.
So you can see the Earth continuing to brighten as the station passes into an orbital daytime.
Check Cygnus configuration per step 1 in 1.602, Cygnus departure monitoring.
Copy.
Right now, the International Space Station flying a little over 250 statute miles over the Pacific. It's just now approaching the western coast of South America, expected to be over the continent of South America once the actual release of Cygnus comes. At again, that release window opening up just 10 minutes from now at 6:25 a.m. Central.
Okay, Houston, the Cygnus configuration checks are complete and we're ready for release.
Copy that, Scott. Stand by for release.
Standing by.
And Station Houston, you are go for Cygnus release on time at 12:25 GMT. Steps 2 through 4 in 1.320. And just as a reminder, the release window closes at 12:58.
Okay, we're go for release on time from 12:25 to 12:58, and we'll be on the earlier side of that. So we're going to get started in 1.320, steps 2, and subsequent up to the release time.
We copy.
So the teams on the ground and the crew in space all geared up now, ready for that departure of Cygnus coming up at 6:25 a.m. Central, 7:25 a.m. Eastern, when the window opens and Cygnus can get the command to be released. Again, Scott Kelly and Tim Copra, the two NASA astronauts on board, standing by in the cupola at the robotics workstation. They'll be ultimately giving the command through the robotics workstation to the robotic arm to release Cygnus, at which point the unmanned cargo craft will fire engines, begin to depart from the space station, and then be on its way, setting it up for a re-entry on Saturday, where it and the roughly 1.5 tons of trash and other disposable items will burn up during re-entry through the Earth's atmosphere, expected to be somewhere over the Pacific. So again, continuing to stand by just a little over 6 minutes from the open of that release window. So just passing 3.5 minutes now from the open of the release window, at which point Scott Kelly and Tim Coper will have the go to send the commands to the robotic arm to release Cygnus, which has spent more than the last 2 months attached to the International Space Station of cargo back in December of 2015. The station just beginning its pass over South America, now 3 minutes away from release. And now 2 minutes and counting from the release. And now 1 minute and counting down from the release of Cygnus, that release window opening up at 6:25 a.m. Central. Again, Scott Kelly and Tim Coper at the controls in the cupola. They'll be sending the command through the robotic arm to release the unmanned cargo craft. Then Cygnus will begin a separation burn, depart from the area of the International Space Station, and begin making its way for an eventual deorbit burn coming up on Saturday, but under 30 seconds now away from the opening of that window.
Okay, Houston, we show ourselves in the release window, so we are going to pick back up with the trigger pull.
We concur.
And so now we'll stand by for the confirmation of release. The crew in the release window now moving through their procedures to send Cygnus on its way. The robotics officer here in Houston confirming the latches in motion, getting close now to the release of Cygnus. And getting confirmation the snares open, Cygnus now released. The release coming at 6:26 a.m. Central Time, while the station and Cygnus flying just over the eastern part of Bolivia in South America. You can see the vehicle now slowly backing away from the station's robotic arm. And the robotic arm now backing away from Cygnus while the vehicle sits in free drift still. Again, the release coming at 6:26 a.m. Central Time, 7:26 a.m. Eastern, while the International Space Station was flying just over the eastern part of Bolivia in South America. So Cygnus now flying free, the robotic arm going to back away to its final park position, at which point Cygnus will fire thrusters under control by the teams in Dulles in Virginia, the orbital ATK flight control team. And the robotics officer confirming the back away has been completed. Next step will be for Cygnus again to fire thrusters, begin its separation burn, and make its way away from the International Space Station. And there you can see Cygnus slowly beginning to fly away from the International Space Station. This again, orbital ATK's fourth commercial resupply flight to the station. The vehicle delivered over 7,700 pounds of supplies to the Expedition 45's and 46 crew.
Pleasure having you on board our space station for so long, and thanks to all the folks in Houston and in Dulles especially that provided this great vehicle for us. It's been a pleasure.
Scott, everybody's sending their thanks up to you. It was a beautiful release, and waiting forward for your return.
Thank you.
And station, Cygnus departure burn is in progress. Continue to monitor departure, steps 2 and 3 in 1.602.
Copy.
So some congratulatory words from Expedition 46 Commander Scott Kelly to the teams down here on the ground, both in Mission Control Houston and out at Orbital ATK, the commercial resupply providers for this vehicle, Cygnus, which delivered over 7,700 pounds of cargo to the International Space Station when it arrived back in December. Now, though, Cygnus departing after a mission well done, making its way away from the station, setting up for that eventual deorbit burn coming up on Saturday. But again, the release coming successfully at 6:26 a.m. Central, 7:26 a.m. Eastern, while the station flew over the eastern part of Bolivia. The Cygnus vehicle now executed its departure burn. Going to begin widening the gap between all of this, setting up for that deorbit and burn up over in the Earth's atmosphere on Saturday.
In Houston, we're going to pick up back in the other procedure with the arm safing.
Concur, Scott. And just for the sake of thoroughness, as you guys probably guessed, the departure burn is complete.
Yeah, we saw that.
So with that, Cygnus continuing to fade off in the distance, the separation burn having been completed after Cygnus was released at 6:26 a.m. Central, 7:26 a.m. Eastern, while both Cygnus and the station were flying over the eastern part of Bolivia. This brings an end to Cygnus's mission. Well, the mission will formally end tomorrow when it begins its destructive reentry through the Earth's atmosphere on Saturday. It'll execute 2 separate burns to eventually re-enter and burn up, along with the roughly 1.5 tons of trash and other disposable items packed on board. At that point, Cygnus will be more than 1,200 miles in front of the International Space Station and about 7 miles beneath it. The vehicle, which delivered more than 7,000 pounds of cargo, science experiments, other supplies for the crews for both Expedition 45 and 46 back in December, spent 72 days attached to the Earth-facing side of the Unity module, and now, though, with its mission done, on its way away from the International Space Station, bringing an end to Orbital ATK's 4th commercial resupply flight to the orbiting laboratory. With that, then, we're going to go ahead and wrap up this morning's broadcast. Thanks for joining us to say farewell to the Deke Slayton II as it wraps up its mission and makes its way away from the International Space Station. Be sure to tune in later to NASA TV for the usual Space Station Live at 10 a.m. Central Time, 11 a.m. Eastern, where we will recap the morning's activity as well as go over all of the other stuff taking place on board for the crew of Expedition 46. With that, though, we will go ahead and sign off for now. This is Mission Control Houston.